evening campers, it's me Q, and today we are going to talk about Flesh by David Szalay. Yes, I had to Google his last name, how to pronounce it. I'm still not convinced. But what were you expecting? It's a Hungarian name. Hungary got bullied by the Germanic, Slavic and the Baltic languages and came up with this absolute mess. And now we've offended the Hungarians, we can now talk about... Szalay lives in Vienna now, so he would rather literally live in the sewer capital of Italy than Hungary. It's good to be back reviewing books and predominantly insulting everyone. Flesh by David Szalay follows the character Istvan, who throughout this novel progresses not an ounce. In fact, the only thing that does progress are his smoking habits. If you read the first 10 pages of this book, you might be confused why I've not started there. Why am I focused on the smoking? I really like this aspect of Szalay's work, which is through time and through the changing of class and expectation, Istvan's smoking habits change. I just really like that, and I wanted to mention it now. But if time is so wibbly-wobbly as David Tennant's Doctor Who did tell us, let's just start at chapter 1. Let's start on with what you want to know about the noncery that happened. Yes, Istvan gets nonced. A man gets nonced by a female? Wait, what's going on here? Yes, would you believe it? It can happen. Yes, add that trigger to your warning, people. Istvan gets nonced by a woman. She gives him attention. She gives him sexual favours. In fact, this is the only form of attention we actually see given to Istvan. Slightly before he gets groomed, we actually do see Istvan with someone his own age, and he's able, possibly, according to his friend, able to engage in some coitus, but alas, things seem to go south very quickly. This older lady gives him the attention that he needs, that he wants, that he craves. We don't really know, and in fact we don't really know much about Istvan. Istvan is very emotionally detached, and how we know that is David Szalay's prose work is known for its minimalism. Now, I've read enough Karl Ove Knausgaard where I feel quite at home at this, but I can see a lot of people reading David Szalay's work and finding it extremely sparse to the point where it's vapid, where not a lot happens and not a lot is communicated to the reader through the words. And let's talk about that. I'm Welsh, I'm going to talk about Cynnon Jones. Cynnon Jones is known for his extremely sparse prose, but his works are only like 100 pages long. People can deal with that sort of length. When it comes to Flesh, you have a lot of repetition of, yeah, okay, sounds cool. For 320 odd pages, Istvan is a man of very little words. We only know Istvan through his actions, and it's his actions that kind of paint up the picture of Istvan. Dear reader, if you've not read this book and you've just come across the mallet of he gets nonce, just know that's within the first chapter. As I said a little bit earlier, we see Istvan go through his life, making no progress whatsoever. Indeed, Istvan at the end of the novel is the Istvan at the beginning of the novel, and all of the actions that he takes make us wonder, do we actually know anything about Istvan? Do we care about Istvan? And I think it's really important that we actually start on the nonsense. Do we actually care that Istvan gets a bit nonced? Indeed, I was listening to the wonderful podcast from Tortoise, Lucky Boy. Basically, in Lucky Boy, it says that within like the 1980s, like diaspora, grooming, it was a serious issue, and it still is a serious issue, but it wasn't really viewed in the same light. And in fact, for a boy to be groomed, he's seen as the lucky boy. Like, why is he complaining that he got nonced by an older woman? And in fact, the victim Gareth talks about how people applauded this, and when they try to, especially after the Me Too movement happens, how people are still a bit cagey about talking about a guy getting nonced. The same thing could be said for Istvan. Do we really care? Especially when all subsequent actions going forward, all the sexual endeavours that he goes through, all seem to pinpoint that Istvan kind of wants this. It's what he craves. He enjoys the pleasures of flesh, maybe. Now, I will say, Lucky Boy deals with this with a lot of thoughtfulness and empathy towards what happened to Gareth. Szalay, however, especially through his prose, seems apathetic and thoughtless throughout this. Istvan goes through life. Does he reflect on anything? According to the psychiatrist that he meets, once he's given antidepressants, that's kind of it. Once he meets Helen, who he maybe falls in love with, that kind of rectifies him. He gets in a better position. Does he reflect on any of that? Are we, the reader, allowed to reflect on that? Maybe. David Solay's work is not going to be for everyone. And again, his prose work is so minimal that I can imagine a lot of readers feeling that they're locked out of the conversation. Istvan doesn't say anything. He doesn't expand. But I think it's a real naturalistic way of speaking. How are you? I'm fine. What about yourself? I'm good. Okay. People talk like this. They don't really let you in on anything. And it's quite frustrating within a book, because especially when you move into like literary works with a lot of like flowery purple prose, people like over-egg all their emotions, but real people don't really speak like this. Remember that Istvan is an immigrant as well when he comes over to the UK, so his ability to speak within his own language kind of becomes obsolete. Actually, the only thing we do know about Istvan is his accent, of which it's mentioned once, and he's mocked by Helen. He's mocked for the way that he speaks. But even when he meets another Hungarian man who he saves from being murdered, we learn nothing much about that. We don't know anything about Istvan. This is what Flesh gets correct. We're not meant to see any growth within Istvan. Istvan doesn't allow for growth. He does the same actions in different scenarios. He never allows himself to look back, to reflect, to ponder on what he has done. I'm self-aware enough to say that when we're talking about men being unable to express themselves, being unable to articulate themselves, and Istvan repeating the actions time and time again, people might think, oh, this is a manosphere book. It's not a manosphere book in the slightest. But there is a conversation that has to be had about how men being able to express themselves hasn't really changed much across the decades. There are still men from old and today who feel their inability to express themselves is just part of being them. That's just what you do. And when it comes to violent or carnal acts as that output, that just seems to be the done thing. Istvan reacts to situations impulsively. He doesn't think things through, and we see this. He gives these nonchalant answers that go nowhere. He falls into cliche and he falls into formality because he's unable to express himself. He can't express himself. He's never really been given the space to express himself, and the one time he is, he doesn't really know how to deal with it. To go back to chapter 1 to frame all of this, how is Istvan meant to articulate being groomed? How is he able to do that at such a young age? But also, the moment that he does articulate his feelings to this older woman, she shuts him down and says, you don't mean that. You don't really feel that. Let's cut off all connection. He articulates himself and then is shut down. He tries to articulate himself later in the novel to Helen, and then he's shut down by his accent and is mocked for it. In that one small turn of phrase, we see that Istvan can't express himself. When he does, he gets told he's wrong. Istvan is a very complex character. Actually, towards the end of the novel, I believe a character tells him, you're not a nice person. Is he not a nice person? He's been through a lot. He saved someone from being murdered, possibly. He's cordial. He's nice. He does accept a blowjob from a woman whose husband's been given a cancer diagnosis. He does kill a man. Kills a few people. But he was in the army. It's a different set of rules. What can I say, kids? Is he a nice person? It's quite hard to tell. We know very little about Ishban. He doesn't really want to talk about himself. He doesn't really want to talk. He just wants to get through life. And I think a lot of us just want to do that. But some people go on YouTube though, so maybe they do want to talk about themselves a bit. Flesh by David Szalay, I'm giving a 7 out of 10. And if you like this, you are going to have a field day with Carl Irving and House Card. Pick any of them up. Pick any of them up. There you go. I think if you like Norwegian Wood, you would like Flesh. There's a lot of like grey area. There's a lot of, are the characters decent? And you kind of have to shrug and go, oh, I think that's the beauty of this work. And I think that's the beauty of this work. Get out. Get out of my home. Why are you even here? I don't know how long it's been. I haven't edited this. Get out of my house.